All right, here we go. 15th anniversary app, part one.
Here we go, dude. You
All right, I'm
ready?
all ready. Yep.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, click. All right. One,
One,
two, three, clap.
clap. 15 years doing this. Ready? 1, 2, 3, clap.
Clap. That was weird, dude. It garbled. Let's do it again.
Okay,
1, 2, 3, clap.
clap. 1, 2, 3, clap.
Clap.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
Better.
All
Okay.
right, here we go. You're listening to the Two Gomers podcast, a show that's been running since, quote, before podcasts were cool, about two regular guys in their 40s embracing midlife, chasing healthy aging, and inviting a nation along for the run. This is episode 390, part one of our 15th anniversary specials, Gomer Moments, for September 29th, 2023.
Welcome, everybody, to the part one of the 15th anniversary Gomer specials of the Two Gomers podcast. This is Anthony speaking, one of those two aforementioned Gomers, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, with my friend Steven, all the way out in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Hey, dude.
Hey, man, these are some big ones. These are big episodes.
Oh, yeah. That quote
Important.
at the beginning here, before podcasts were cool, that was from listener Brian.
Yeah.
Opened up with that on his email. This is going to be a heavy listener feedback app. This one and
Yeah.
next app. You know, when we did the 10th anniversary episodes, you can listen to those fall 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was like kind of us remembering things. We had a tons of help from listeners, right? Especially Mackenzie.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
these we really felt like we wanted to hear from folks, their favorite moments, what's impacted them. We were going to record one app, and then we got so much feedback. We're not going to be
Yeah.
able to get to it all anyway, but we needed to split it up into two, we felt like.
Yeah. Well, I just want to open up to with two things.
Mm,
One, just want to relieve the pressure because this is actually for podcasters. If there's podcasters that are listening, you
yeah.
can totally resonate with. This is sort of a nerve-wracking episode because we
Mm-hmm.
really want to get it right and we
Yeah.
wanted to get it all in there. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to do our breathing,
Okay. Great
right?
idea. Yeah.
So we breathe in. Just breathe. That was mostly for me. Um, and then
I know people did it with us.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, actually, whenever I'm editing or listening through an old episode, that always makes me feel totally better
Me too.
to just do it along with it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And then, secondly, I want to apologize right off the bat. We're not going to be able to get to everything. Like these emails, I was reading through these emails because Lily and I have been, which we're going to get to the fact that when we started the podcast, Aaron and I didn't even have kids. We didn't
Right.
even know anything about parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm laying down with Lily. She's reading her Keeper of the Lost Cities,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm reading through Gomer emails and bawling, bro.
Wait, you were
Bawling.
bawling, not Lily. You were
I
bawling.
Yeah, I was crying and
Yes.
laughing because
Yep.
normally I'm reading a book, but I was like, we're prepping for this episode,
Sure.
and she's like, "What, Dad? What? It's not
Are
even
you
Daddy anymore.
okay?
That's how long this podcast has been going." She's like, "Dad, what is going on?" I'm like, I didn't realize our podcast like meant so much to people. And she's like laughing, and I'm
Yep.
reading her stuff, and so but that being said, if you sent us an email and we don't get to read it, or a
Mm-hmm.
comment and we don't get to read it, we're gonna do our absolute best.
And rest assured, we've read everything
Mm-hmm.
and cried over a lot of it. Both
Mm-hmm.
of us, we're emotional boys. We're sensey
Totally.
boys. And people
Totally.
probably knew that writing some of these emails that it was going to get to us. We're going
Yep.
to read a lot, but not everything. But thank you to everybody that wrote in. Um,
Yep.
so hold on, I've got some I want to show you.
Ooh. Oh.
Putting on my Two Gomers Run a Half Marathon headband. You
I
had these
need to
made
go.
for us, right?
Yeah, and I need to. Did I? Who did?
I didn't.
I
I think you did.
That's that's just amazing. This is where back in those first few seasons, we've gotten a
Yeah.
lot of feedback. It will always happen
Mm-hmm.
where season 1 is everybody's favorite.
Yep. Definitely. We'll get
That's
to
not
that.
actually that's not actually true. It's
Obviously lots of people still have I don't know. It's probably the most listened to season
yep, totally.
because that's where people start. But people have a lot of nostalgia, which is weird. They have a nostalgia about something we've done about that
Yep.
first season for sure.
Yes. But I remember in season 3, 2 or 3 when Jessica was like, "Why do you guys want to have everything that's the same?" Remember like we were going to have matching everything? That was totally, I think, driven by me. And I think you just kind of went along with it. And I was like, I've never been on a team,
That's
like,
very true. We want our own jerseys.
yeah, we're Team Gomer.
Yep.
And so, and
Mm.
dude, 15 years later, we're still Team Gomer,
Yep,
going strong.
definitely. Yeah, I've also got this one of our shirts. I mean, 15 years of merch, right? But this
Yeah.
one you can't tell because I mean, it's paper thin. I'm surprised it's not falling apart. The shirt I have on right now, tight
Yep.
as heck,
Yep.
because I bought it in 2014 and it's not anymore. I think 2014. When did we run the try? Yeah, 2014, and it's the
Wow.
triathlon shirt with the since been taken down
Uh,
because of copyright reasons.
right.
Paramount's mad that we have the Enterprise on it.
Well, you don't anymore. Look at it. You
Well,
can't
yeah,
even
this
see.
could sell. You can't see that that's the Enterprise right there. But it's our run. What's the order?
Didn't we call it
Bike,
swim, bike, warp or something?
swim, bike, run, warp shirt.
That's
I mean,
yeah.
that's pretty good, bro.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
fun.
it's been a we're celebrating 15 years. We're
Yep.
gonna talk a lot through on this episode, people's favorite moments from the podcast and ours too.
Yep.
Um, I thought I could just quickly run through our 12 different titles
Jeez.
of this
Yep.
podcast. I
Yep.
thought maybe there's 7.
Uh-huh.
Been 15 years. You'd think maybe there'd be 1 or 2 for most people. 1,
Yeah.
I guess, for most podcasts.
Yep.
Nope. We've had, in true Gomer style, 12 different titles of the podcast.
What, why is that?
That's a great question.
Why? I mean, I guess we didn't want to just be the Two Gomers podcast off the bat and nobody would have found us.
No, we really had to work. And I actually think most people would say they first found us. And I do think this is the main thing we've lost with the recent title, Two Gomers Podcast, is it doesn't say exactly what we're doing. There's
Right.
no verb, but
You're right.
it's the right move.
Aging. Two Gomers
Two Gomers
aging
get old.
healthily.
It's no,
Or-
we don't need a 13th title at this point.
yeah. No,
Um,
I think Two Gomers podcast is so
yeah.
simplified and perfect. I love it.
After 15 years, I think we were ready for that. So
Yep.
2008, Two Gomers run a marathon. That's the headband I'm wearing right now,
Yep.
which is pretty sweet, bro. Especially for long hairs
Totally.
like
I
me
mean,
right now.
yeah. I mean, I have mine, but I would lose my Bluetooth connection and probably my computer would fail if I
You have to
leave
get
this
it.
spot. I can't leave this spot.
Yeah, it's like in the in the theater when there's like X's, right? The
Yeah.
blocking, you cannot move that.
Yep.
Um,
Right.
2009, Two Gomers run a marathon. That was our longest season, 37 weeks.
Dang. Yep. I mean,
Insane.
there's so much in that.
I got my accident there.
Oh yeah, but I
Remember?
mean, there's so much to that. Like both of us had our stuff. I mean, it
Yeah.
makes sense that that was so long.
Yep.
Yep.
The third season was again Two Gomers run a marathon, the sub 5 strive.
Yep.
That took a couple years.
Yep.
Then we decided we're going to switch the name and stick with this. Two Gomers run for their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we did actually. And I was like, but what even was the 4th season about? Mostly, bro, it was about you having a baby.
Mm,
But the goal was we had a PR goal for the turkey trot, and our first weight loss goal was that season.
okay.
With a little reading of the episode descriptions, I figured that out.
Okay. Yeah, this right around sub 5 strive is where I started to get obsessed with career
Oh,
also.
interesting. Okay.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
was
and
when
that's
it's like, okay, this is where I'm aiming.
okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's really interesting to just be able to remember that based on these years and actually what we were recording and how we were feeling around those times.
yeah. I mean, there's always been an up and down
Uh-huh.
with the podcast. You and I have both ebbed and flowed with commitment levels, interest levels.
Right.
We'll probably talk about that in the next two. But
Mm-hmm.
you can see that. It's like we want to keep doing this,
Yeah. Yep.
but it's like really hard with all the things we're doing, yada yada yada. So
Yeah. So speaking of that, fifth season was called Back to the Basics, where we were like, no, we just got to go back to what we started at. So we did the same half marathon
yeah, okay.
as we did the first season
Yep.
in Phoenix. We just trained for that again. Um, then another season, another favorite season, I think, for folks is the triathlon season was 2013 to 14.
Epic.
Several listeners who wrote in feedback were like, you guys got to go back and listen to that season. It's the best.
Okay.
Because I think it was the Gomers in their most Gomer, maybe
Yep,
since
the
first season.
fish out of water. Yeah, maybe season 1 and 4. Or sorry.
Six.
6,
Yep.
whatever that is. The
Yeah.
triathlon. Yep.
Then season 7, maybe our most regrettably titled season, I would say at this point. Two Gomers conquer
Oh,
the capital.
dude, I haven't even thought of that. That is like in light of
Let
January
it
6th.
January 6th. I
Oh,
know. It's
jeez.
it's a little embarrassing.
Oh, gosh. Oh, geez. Okay,
Um
well, just take a look at the date on that, people. It was in the
right.
2015
Yeah,
16,
it was
and it's a race called that,
right. And
right?
the reason it was called that was because it was downtown Madison at the Capitol. And remember, it
Yep.
was 10K at night and half marathon the next morning.
Yep.
Lots
Yes.
of, if I remember in that season, um, turmoil, I think, between us about commitment levels to this
Yep.
and whether we could do this anymore. When
Yep.
was Isla born?
She was born in 2016.
Okay, so I think it was around then where it
Yep.
was like, are we going to still do this? Speaking of that, season 8 was sub 5 by 40, 2018,
Yep.
17 into 18.
Mm-hmm.
And that really also was like are we doing this? Is this a running podcast? A lot of conversations about that. And so I have in here, then 2000, like between, then there was a long break
Yep.
of Two Gomers main feed stuff. Part of that was because we started Perfect Movie in that
Yep.
time. And part of it was just like we didn't know what we were anymore. Super
Yep.
interesting stuff, bro. Then maybe the second most regrettably titled
Mm.
season, Lose 20 in 2020.
Oh man, it's kind of embarrassed for your goosebumps a little bit.
Well,
We're gonna do 20-minute episodes, and we're gonna lose 20 in 2020.
yeah, right. Okay, so I would say the biggest benefit of that was that we started the bonus disc during that
Yep.
that
Yep. So that
season,
was
and
the Patreon.
yep.
That was everybody was hunkered down and
Mm-hmm.
everybody was starting to podcast. But look at not a lot of this episode is going to be look at us. But
Uh-huh.
I mean, here we are 13 years in
Yep.
and everybody's starting their podcasts.
Uh-huh.
But we've already got all that there. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Hmm.
2021 runner's block.
Yep.
2022 overcoming runner's block,
Yep.
and then 2023 Two Gomers podcast.
Mm, wow.
It just that kind of run, and Part two, I'm gonna play a montage that I made, a medley of all the openers.
Okay.
That
Dang.
I don't know if how significant this is, but 10 is when we also got our actual own music, intro music. Davis wrote us our own
Mm,
music. There's
mm-hmm.
something like there's some maturity shift there.
Yeah.
I think in after a decade of podcasting in our own lives, these last three seasons, and what I'm assuming Two Gomers podcast, we've said it, and I actually believe this, that title is going to last a long time.
Yep.
Um, finally feels like a little bit more like two grown-ups.
Uh-huh.
I don't know exactly what I mean there, but
Yeah.
there does seem to have been a shift after Lose 20 in 2020 that was a significant like really though what are we?
Yep. No, I feel that
Mm-hmm.
so acutely. I mean, I
Mm,
even texted you earlier. I've never felt more energy,
mm,
excitement, and vigor towards the podcast than I do now, 15 years in.
right.
And I think part of that is the buildup of the last couple years of intentionality, of professionalism, of
Mm-hmm.
excellence
Yep.
towards
I
the
agree.
actual product that we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm really proud of
Yeah.
and not embarrassed to tell people about.
Which for years and years we were.
Well, yeah. So, and maybe I don't know. Like there is this shift, dude,
Uh-huh.
from first half of life to second half of life that we've both gone through.
I think
We've
that that's probably it.
we
We
yeah.
instead of fighting against that, we
Yep.
started embracing it in 2021.
Yep. Like I
Even
kind of
though I
feel
know people thought runner's block was too negative, but it was our way, I think, of embracing, of facing. That was what it was about, facing the blocks to our health and actually embracing our middle age and healthy directions
mm-hmm,
in the face of those blocks.
mm-hmm. Yep.
Some
Learning
shift.
to accept also who we are,
Mm-hmm.
be learning to be the contentment thing, the
Mm-hmm.
gratitude thing, all these kind of maturing elements of hitting that midpoint
Yep.
and crossing over. You and I both crossed over our midlife crises
Yeah.
together at
Yep.
separate times.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I truly believe I'm post that.
Yep.
So like looking back even at these, like I'm just seeing where for me, because we got a lot of feedback about uh that people just personally resonated with my depression and anxiety battles that I have
Yes.
not shared even like the tip of the iceberg
But even what you've
on the
shared, it
pod.
seems like people are recognize that and see it in
Yeah.
themselves and have been thankful about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But seeing this laid out
Mm-hmm.
like just right here, I can see the trajectory of it
Yeah.
and then truly feel just like an and there's been a page turned, a chapter turned.
Yeah.
And I feel like this 15th anniversary moment to look back uh, excites me for the future, but also makes me grateful for times that were actually really hard.
I agree. I don't think we could have made this transition fully into the Two Gomers podcast where we're totally just talking about middle age health like that, unless the page had been turned.
Yep.
I think it would. I don't think it would have worked if we were still turning that page, but it has been turned. I think you're
Wow.
right. Um.
I think that's an important step in
Mm-hmm,
maturity, if I may
mm-hmm.
say so,
You
is
may.
that you've got to turn that page or else you're still trying to be something that you're not and are never going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but what that's doing is that's a block.
I agree. And I actually think we saw that happening or felt that happening season 7 through 9 was a very interesting
Yep.
segment of our podcast where we were battling against the inevitable.
Dang.
And someday, bro, I want to listen to it all. And
Yep.
so this is big picture stuff. We're gonna get into some specific moments, which we really wanted to do. It's really helped me actually to hear
Yeah.
people's favorite moments.
Yep.
So because I can tend to think about the podcast big picture, and then in episodes like this, I'm like, oh yeah. And there's been a lot of oh yeah, like in this. And so I really want to get to those. Any other opening thoughts about as we're moving into our favorite moments of the podcast? How have you been interacting around this before we start getting to listener feedback?
Yeah, dude. Two things.
Mm-hmm.
One, when we started this podcast, the Beautiful Letdown episode, or excuse me, album by
Yeah.
Switchfoot
Mm-hmm.
was 5 years old. You know, it
Okay.
was
Yep.
seasoned in our brains as core
Right.
music, you
Yes.
know.
Yep.
And now that album has just had its 20th anniversary, you know,
Uh-huh.
right as we speak. Like Beautiful Letdown, our version with all the covers dropped today as we're recording this,
Right. Yep.
which I haven't even listened to yet.
Mm.
Uh, but John Foreman, I went to the concert a couple weeks ago with Krause. One of the
Right.
funnest things ever. We're
Mm-hmm.
going again in 2 weeks
Oh, you
because
are? Oh, that's
I was
awesome.
like, I got back from that and I was like, Aaron has to go to this.
Okay. Yep.
And I was like, and Lily and Isla have been listening to Beautiful Letdown. They love it. So I was like, they have to go to this.
You're gonna take them.
This,
That's
that.
great. Yep.
Yep. So they're coming to Chattanooga.
Okay.
But John Foreman said this thing, and it made me think of our podcast. He said,
Mm-hmm.
20 years into this album, and we still love these songs, and we still believe the message in these songs.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me
Yeah.
think of the podcast because I was like, we're 15 years into this thing. We're 30 years into friendship.
Yep.
And so much has changed, but
Mm-hmm.
the core of who we are has not changed.
Yep.
And I'm really proud of that because what we still believe what we believe. We still love our wives and our kids and
Mm-hmm.
each other as friends.
Yes.
And so
Definitely.
I that really ministered to me when he said that, and it made me
Uh-huh.
think of the pod. And then lastly, for 15 years, I have never actually felt ready when we started recording a podcast. Oh,
Wow. You're kidding again.
but what I mean by that, and I think people can relate, is
Sure.
like you never feel like you're quite ready,
Uh-huh.
but 1:30 on Thursday always comes around, and it's like, well, you gotta go.
Yep. Yeah.
Go with what you've got. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean?
And if I may be so bold, I think it usually works great.
Yeah.
Now you and I are very different in that. This is also
Yeah.
something that people have said, even in the comments, that they like about the podcast, whether they can tell our voices apart or not, they can
Right.
tell that we're very different people. And for me, I'm like, are we ready for this? Is this going to be awful? And we've said this before on the podcast. Like, we'll even record an episode like, oh, that wasn't very good.
Right.
And it usually just there's some sort of, I mean, I guess it comes down to our friendship, right? It just
Yep.
works. Even though we're very different people, and whether I feel ready at 1:30, which I usually do, and you don't, that for some reason that dynamic just once we start recording, it really works.
Well, that's what I mean is it comes around.
Yeah.
And it's
Yep.
like you can either choose to take part in it with what you've got to give, with what you've
Mm-hmm.
brought with you,
Yep.
and with the well of stories and experiences.
Yeah.
You know, or you can just not do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think both our dynamics, the way they work together is, and by prepared I mean I am
fully 100%. I know exactly what's going to happen, and I don't have another thing I wish I could have thought about. Is that what you
I
mean?
think if I were to be, I think in a dream world, I would have a script written out perfectly with an eloquent, amazing version of me. That
Sure,
would be
yeah.
the only way I would feel truly prepared.
Right.
And that like so I you know I have all these weird ideals in my head.
Yeah, I know.
And so I think I just it's not that I don't feel prepared because I do,
Yeah.
but it's that nothing's ever good enough or
Mm-hmm.
ready enough. I mean, I
And
feel
so
like that in my own professional life, dude.
right. I think that to a certain extent, the podcast has been helpful for both of us in our kind of intricacies like that to
Yeah.
let go
Yeah.
and to be okay with it helps that people like the podcast, right?
Yeah.
To trust that people like it, and we'll be reading that, right?
Yep.
And so part of this whole process has been a nice reminder that, oh yeah, gosh darn it, people like us.
Right.
um, I think we should head into some of the feedback. So again, this is going to be heavy listener feedback. We asked people, share us in this 15th year anniversary special. What were some of your favorite moments? And so we're going to be pressing into the listener feedback. Hey, wait a minute, that's not right. It's me, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Haven't heard from me for a while. And also, have I been in any movies lately? Has Arnold been in any movies lately?
Just a documentary
Okay.
series
I've
about
taken
his
on the role
life.
of being anti-Trump. For all you anti-Trumpers out there, smoke my stogie, show you my Conan sword, and talk about Trump. That's my role right now until Triplets comes out. I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. Listener feedback. I've organized these in themes.
Great.
Let's start with early days. Like you
Yep.
were saying, a lot of people, and we got a lot of feedback that are like, season 1, baby.
Yep.
So Jennifer said, I mean, all of season 1 is gold. Running in khaki shorts and the hot pocket conversation, which I think was your one of your earliest tips was don't eat a hot pocket before you
Yep.
go on a
Yep.
run.
And it was like Johnny in a hot pocket, like just so that voice, that 28, 29-year-old voice.
You mean our voices you're talking about, how different they were?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
they really were.
we say this every time we talk about season 1,
Mm-hmm.
but there is so much. There's though that is so authentically us.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh,
And it was no pressure, right? We had no aspirations
nope.
of like
Mm-mm.
listenership.
Mm-mm.
And dude, we worked hard, and we always have. Listener, you should know. This is like I was talking about side gigs with somebody before, and I mentioned the podcast and the Patreon, and I was like, is that really a side gig or is that a second job that I have? Sometimes it feels like, I don't know. I mean, obviously there were those year and a half where we didn't do it at all. But
Yep.
when we do it, we work hard on this thing. And you can tell even in season 1, we're working hard. That's not what I mean. But
Yep.
we didn't, like, we were kind of like, whatever. And it was
I
awesome.
am. I know. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm jealous of that guy,
Yeah.
and that's
Yep.
me, and that's you.
For sure.
Like, it's almost like that. It was the beginning of the journey
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, at least. It was
Yeah.
the beginning of the journey into my head,
Mm-hmm.
and then I feel like the last few years has been the journey getting out of it.
Yep.
Or something.
I mean, that's pretty accurate. I
It's
wonder
almost
if you listened
from
through the whole series, you would have been like, that's exactly what it is.
yeah, from first naivete to second naivete.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Hopefully we've been trying to at least enter
Oh,
into
man.
that. Um, we recorded that episode last year on the Patreon, listening to our recordings of our worship bands when we were in college, just crying and
Yep.
crying, longing for that second naivete.
Yeah.
I feel like we were working hard to get there. The new iteration of the podcast, I think, is helping with that.
Yep.
Patricia also mentioned running a race in cargo shorts. That's an early days thing. Now, here's the interesting thing about this, Patricia. I never ran a race in cargo shorts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was just the initial runs. We'll get to runs.
Uh-huh.
But that was an interesting comment for me to read too, because I wonder how when you've been doing this for 15 years, how folklore
Yep.
has shifted even in people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would have been an amazing story if I'd run a race in cargo shorts, but I don't think I ever did.
No. But that's when you remember something over and over and over again, and like you overwrite it, like
Mm-hmm.
your time machine on your laptop, it
Right.
overwrites each one.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly over time that's gotten overwritten to you ran a you ran a race, and it was really only a handful of times like that, right?
Yeah. So
But I
actually,
love it. I love the
I love
idea.
it too. I love that idea too. And that memory in Patricia's mind, like, makes me really happy.
I love it.
What a story it would have been. We did see that
Yep.
one tall kid in jeans, remember?
Yep. Jeans and
Walking
like
and beating
New
us.
Balance. And
Yep.
he was so tall that his walking was faster than our running because
You don't
his
probably
steps.
you don't necessarily have to be tall for that to be true, but he was.
True, but I mean, like, if he was walking the same tempo
Uh-huh.
or half tempo, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was his stride was so long, so the
Yes.
truffle
It's so
shuffle
fun.
equivalent. We were doing
Yeah, right.
16th notes to his quarter note.
That's good. Yeah. Now I don't have any clips to play for first season because I think we've played some of these clips like ad nauseum. You can go
Yeah,
back to the premiere episodes, and then we've done rewinds and then 10th anniversary episodes with full of exactly the kind of clips that people are talking about.
yep.
So I'm not going to play any of those clips, but I would say if people are curious, you just go right back to the beginning and you can hear everything about what we're talking about ourselves and what people are mentioning.
I love that it's still all there. We have the
Yep.
specials and all that stuff that's still in the Disney vault, but
Mm-hmm.
uh it annoys me when, like, my favorite podcasts, you can't go back and listen to the old ones cuz they're gone.
Yeah, or they're
You know what I
behind the
mean?
paywall, which I thought of doing before, to be honest, but I don't think we ever I don't think we're in a place
Oh.
where I feel like we could do that. Like I was thinking, what if we took Lose 20 season and put it behind the paywall?
Well, that would be a good idea. I mean, well, it wouldn't
It's a
be a good
great idea.
financial. I mean, okay, so there's something to this though, not the
Uh-huh.
paywall idea.
Sure.
There is, because I do feel that our podcast is way, it's like a behemoth if a new person wants to join.
Yeah, that's true.
There's almost too many, like, if we could somehow, you know, it would take way more work than you and I would ever be able to do. But if we could somehow streamline the feed to
Yeah.
only good episodes.
Well, I wonder, like, if a new listener looks at it and they see that there's almost 400 episodes, is
Yeah.
that a bonus? Is that a draw or not?
Good question.
Um, so we were just talking about, I mean, I can't believe we're talking about this on air, but this is the Gomers, right? Like
Yeah.
you had mentioned like first season, second season, sixth season, and then runner's block and forward, I would say, are like essential.
Yeah.
So what if we left those on the main feed?
Wow.
And then I don't know, listener, tell us what you think. Like
Huh.
is the behemoth, the great word,
Mm-hmm.
helpful or not? Or is it better to be like, here's a taste of who we are?
Yeah. See, I would rather, above making money, I
Yeah.
would just rather it being simplified and easier to listen to. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so that that lots and lots of comments about those early days, first season, second season. Um, and then we had comments that in a theme that I'm calling tangents turning into episodes. And so
Mm-hmm.
we started this podcast as a running podcast, right?
Yep.
But right off the bat, we're talking about Shia LaBeouf,
Uh-huh.
partner to Crystal Skull,
Yep.
and eating fried Twinkies and all sorts of stuff. And
Yep.
basically, I think that has become the hook was running,
Right.
but I think obviously from these comments that people like the tangents. And so Albert,
Yep.
guess what, Albert? You win the 15th anniversary because you sent us clips, audio clips.
Yes. Oh man, if people are want to do this now, you can still do this, but it won't make it onto the episode. But just send us screen recordings of your favorite moments.
Right. And that
That
is what
that is so
Albert did.
helpful. Yep.
And so he wrote us a wonderful email, but he also included a lot of clips around this, right? Kind of
Yeah.
non running things that he loved. We're going to
Yep.
play 3 of them. But I don't know, do you want to read this what he said about the
Yeah.
clips?
Okay. His email was so great.
Mm-hmm.
He was just grateful for the podcast for a long, long time.
Yep.
He sent us 3 clips. He said, They all made me laugh out loud, but the last one literally made me laugh so hard while I was on a treadmill at the gym that I had to stop so I wouldn't fall. And everyone in the gym was looking at me like I was having a stroke. And we've
So
all been there. I know the feeling.
me too.
Like
So
throwing up laughing.
yes, I will play that. We will get to that clip he's talking about in particular, but I want to kind of play them. This is one that goes with this tangents turning into eps because movies have always been something that we've talked about.
Yep.
And that became not only we started recording like just completely non-running movie eps on
Yep.
the main feed.
Right.
And then we went to the second podcast, Perfect Movie. But he sent in this clip about Force Awakens. Remember we went to the Force Awakens?
Yeah.
And we would record like the next day.
Yep.
I think all of our Star Wars eps, new Star Wars movies in theaters eps are recorded the next morning, the following morning.
We've somehow been able to make it happen.
Yep. So he sent this clip. Let me make sure that we can hear it. Can you hear this? Uh-oh. Come on. Play. Shoot. It's not playing.
And screens were showing
there we
Star
go.
Wars.
Can
Yeah.
you hear
So
that?
it wouldn't have been a tragedy for us to have to go to at the 8 o'clock or something if I didn't get good seats. But I didn't want to risk it. I wanted to go at 7. So I
Yeah.
get there, and tons of people are there already sitting on the ground.
Huh.
And I was like, ugh, this sucks.
And what time did you get there?
Noon.
Did you already say that? Sorry.
Parking lot's full.
Okay. Yep.
Get there at noon. Tons of people. Nerds as far as the eye can see.
Oh,
dude.
yeah. Yes. Totally.
And I said, Chewie, I'm home when I walked into that place.
My
So-
people.
right. And I was just like, oh no, I'm gonna have to sit on the ground and get sucky seats. So I looked downtrodden and I handed the lady my ticket. And she's like, oh, you're at the first show, 7 o'clock. Theater's open.
Whoa.
And I was like, I said what?
Oh.
And so I just stroll right in.
Mhm.
Now the theater was already half full at
Okay.
noon.
Okay.
But kind of like not detrimentally full. So I just walked.
All right. So, I
Mm.
mean, sometimes we just like talk about. I would say it started where we would have running eps, and then it would be almost nothing about running the whole time, and then we were just like,
Yeah.
we just need to call the ep what it is.
Yep. Totally. I mean, there is this fighting against just being the Two Gomers podcast almost since the beginning.
Yep. Exactly. What you will say often. I was looking through the Patreon episodes. They're so much better than the main feed. Like those are the ones I want to listen to.
Yeah.
There's still that
but
battle within us, but
yeah. Well,
you know, it's
yeah.
interesting since I changed the I don't know what you call it, the category on Apple
Mhm.
Podcasts to mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Since we switched to Two Gomers podcast, we've gotten a lot of new listeners. I think it was just like, if it was just like comedy,
Uh-huh.
we
No.
would, I don't think the podcast would have lasted. If it, lots of people are like, well, just read the phone book, or we just like to hear you talk. That's the Patreon, us reading the
Yep.
phone book.
Yeah. Letters
we've always-
A through AB.
We've always felt like we need to keep, and this is the right decision, that we want to help. We want to talk about deeper health things. And for 14 years that was running. And now I really think we've hit a new stride with the aging mental health stuff.
Yeah. Well, we've gotten so much, like you said, new listeners, but also positive feedback.
Yep.
Like I was even talking to another friend at church a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
and they were like, I wasn't listening anymore because I was like, I
Mhm.
don't run.
Right.
And they're like, I love this new season.
Yep.
Actually, I was talking to my bassoon repairman and restoration guy, Ken. He was like,
wow, Ken.
I love the new iteration of your podcast.
Dang,
He's like, I don't
that's
run.
awesome.
And yeah, so yep, I think this was absolutely the right decision. And also, on two fronts. One, it's not just blabbing on; it has a point.
Uh-huh.
And two, you have to have some hard stuff with the fun stuff.
Yes. Definitely.
You know, like
and vice
you have-
versa. You have to have the fun stuff
yes,
along with the hard stuff, which I think is
Yep.
why we have kept recording and people
Yep.
still like us.
Yep.
Do you want to read what Sue wrote in her email about this?
Yeah, a great email from Sue. I wish we could read everybody's whole emails, but just know that we read them and love them. She said, "I never thought I would get excited about two guys in Blockbuster, but I could not wait to hear how that went." That's so
Blockbuster, something that we've been talking about since I think also episode 1, season 1, episode
Yep.
1.
Yep.
And then sometimes it's just like that, those things get a mind of their own.
Yep.
And then this beautiful culmination of about a month ago when we actually got to go to Blockbuster together, the last Blockbuster in Bend.
Yes. Yep. So that would, I guess that would be the phone book kind of thing,
Mhm.
where I just really like you guys, and if you want to go to this Blockbuster place, I'm there.
And read titles
Oh.
of movies. I mean, it almost was reading the phone book.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm appreciative that people have stuck around with us, and not only stuck around with us, but have really said this like weird thing that you guys keep talking about is my favorite part
Yeah.
and gets me excited about the podcast. I love that stuff.
Yep.
Speaking of which, a lot of the comments, this next theme is called Poop Chat.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of comments about how much people appreciated, not tolerated,
Uh-huh.
but people appreciate that we are honest about our bodily functions.
Well, it's something that everybody worries about on some level, and when you normalize talking about it, then you're like, oh, other people are worried about that or
Yep.
go through that, you know.
Yep, you hit it right on the head. I think that there's a willingness that we have that people enjoy to talk about some stuff that everybody deals with, but you won't necessarily find on other running podcasts.
Yeah.
I think that's
Right.
changed. I think that there's more of like a willing, but especially when we started, I think we really
Yeah.
stood out as these are amateur runners.
Yeah. Right.
And it's okay to have that kind of podcast on Apple.
Yes. I think that the vulnerability thing, maybe it's the big push from like Brene Brown
Mhm.
and kind of like around self-help and self-actualization that's happened over the last 15 years and was obviously before us.
Yep.
The world doesn't begin on Gomer episode 1.
Yep.
But I think vulnerability, it has become much more present in the podcastosphere. But
Yep.
at this point, especially in the running thing, that was like, it was mostly pros.
I wonder, could we get away with saying that we were the original amateur runners podcast?
Whoa. Well, okay, we had, who else was around then? I mean, we had Angie.
Yeah. Yep.
Shoot. No, I can't.
But
think
you
of the
think
name of it
about
right now.
Angie compared to us, bro.
Yeah.
Like we're a different level down from her.
No, you're totally right. Marathon Training Academy. No, but Trevor, yeah, it took me a second. My brain.
Yep.
It was Marathon Training Academy. They were starting at the same time as us, and
Yeah.
Trevor was a Gomer.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? We had a lot of conversations with them, and we had her on our podcast, and they were starting too, but they were, I mean, completely different trajectory than us, and wanted to have a community, and she's like a trained,
Yeah.
like does training for people.
Yep.
I don't even know what that would have been if we would have ever taken somebody under our wing. What if we had
I don't know.
Gomer
Yeah.
in training?
Yeah, maybe we could. What I'm saying is that I think especially our first couple years, most of the feedback we got was saying there's nobody else doing what you guys are doing right now.
Right.
Anything else running is pros or tips or here's how to do it right. And we
Yeah.
were out there just saying learn from our mistakes, basically.
Well, there was always like a part of me, like in the very back, like maybe at some point we'll get over this
Yep.
and actually be good. Still hasn't happened yet.
No, and I don't think I think people would be disappointed if that did happen.
Well, I was thinking about that on my walk earlier today.
Uh-huh.
I was like just thinking about how my mom has been trying to get on Patreon for 3 years and still can't figure it out.
Sure. And I would be kind of disappointed if she did figure it out.
I was like, should we figure that out? I was like, nah, let's just keep that going.
Yeah, send her hard copies on a disc. Like my dad thought it was. When am I going to get my discs? It's called the bonus disc.
Right.
Both
love
Jenny
you, Mom.
and Kelly mentioned. Jenny mentioned first mention of Code Brown was her favorite moment back in the first or second season, and for her that was
Yep.
this realization that she's not the only one, right?
Totally.
That this is something that a lot of people struggle with.
Mhm.
And then she also mentioned here that has become common parlance for her child and her. This is what they call it, Code
Yeah.
Brown, and that really, I mean, that really touches my heart. If people are starting to say the things that we say,
That's crazy.
it's really
We've-
quite
we-
wonderful.
We got a lot of comments and emails, and even on Patreon. Maybe it was not on Patreon. I'm mixing them all up in my head right now. But of people that they were like, I quote the Gomers on a regular
Right.
basis
Mhm.
to my family and friends. If I say the Gomers, they know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Or if they say anything that they learned,
Uh-huh.
their family will say, "Oh, where'd you get that? The Gomers."
Uh-huh. It's probably
that-
annoying.
How annoying is that? Right. Kelly says that she actually gave some advice to us: drink half a cup of coffee and poop before you go when
Oh,
we
yeah.
asked for tips. And
Yep.
us reading that was a real highlight for her. So we've also received, we've received poop
Oh yeah.
advice from bodily function tips from the just the vast listenership who wants to
Yep.
talk about this stuff. So I was just struck by how many people were like, my favorite moment was this poop related thing.
When I almost pooped my pants on a bridge.
Yep.
Totally. Well, Kelly, that advice has stuck with us
Uh-huh.
and freed us.
Oh yeah. Released. There's been a wonderful release.
Nasty dude.
All right, let's move on because here's some clips I want to play. And
Okay.
actually, why don't I just play this clip from Kevin?
Okay.
Because it sets up our next theme pretty well.
Hey guys, it's Kevin, longtime listener. I appreciate you guys so much. Just calling in with what my favorite moment is. My absolute favorite moment of the podcast was when Anthony was in the Dominican Republic or the Cuba or someplace like that. He had gone when his wife Erin was pregnant, but there was no anticipation that Lily would come early. However, they had Lily when Anthony was out of the country, and the Gomers played the phone call between Anthony and Erin, and they had an underscore of either "You Are My Sunshine" or I think it was "You Are My Sunshine" just playing beneath it, and I cried like a baby. I was so happy. That was my absolute favorite moment on the podcast. So congratulations to you guys. I want you for 15 more years. I love you, and God bless you.
Oh man.
So we had a lot of people mention this moment. Same thing in our 10th anniversary. This is like, I would say, besides khaki shorts, or you pooping yourself on the bridge, or sorry, almost pooping yourself on the bridge. This is tops. So Sandy, Keith, I would say 3-4 other people mentioned this moment in particular and the stuff around it. If people are looking for this, it's season 4, episode 2. Do you want me to play that phone call? Are you ready for that?
Sure. Here, before you do that, let me just say also Graylin,
who's
that's been
right,
on our podcast a couple of times. She also mentioned this. She was like getting her car fixed, I think is what she said.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And she would listen to this episode, and she said that she was genuinely happy for someone she had never met.
Yeah, and that seems to be like an experience a lot of people. Now, I recognize that experience with other
Yeah.
podcasts that I listen
Yep.
to, and I feel
Yeah.
like I'm their friends.
Right.
The difference is we are friends with Graylin and Kevin. We never would have met them before,
Yep.
but it's interesting to hear that when they first heard those moments, they weren't friends with us, and we have this weird thing where we're just really good friends with some of our listeners.
Yep.
Do you want? We've played this clip before. I just feel like maybe it's a little bit. It bears repeating. This is the
let's do
phone
it.
call, okay?
Let's do
And
it.
it's actually pre-birth. This phone call.
Oh, okay.
So listen.
Hi, Aaron. It's 7 o'clock. I'm here at the hotel. We're going to leave in about 30 minutes to get in a cab and head to the airport. My flight is at 10:30. We'll get into Miami around, I'm honestly like half an hour after that, probably be in a van, or in Miami by like 11:15. I'm jumping on a flight at 1:45. It's Delta Flight 4914.
I like this detail.
It's taking me to Tampa. So, babe, I love you so much. You're my hero. You're my strong woman. I totally trust the Lord, and I know that He has you in His hands, and He has the baby in His hands. And I will call you the second I can. When we get to the airport, we're gonna get a new phone card, so we'll be able to call you, and I'll call you again before I leave the hotel. Okay, I love you. Bye.
Okay, I'm mistaken. Lily had been born at that time. That was you coming home, right? Dude, when you
Wow.
say you're my strong woman, there is something like so sexy about that. but like I feel like it really in that moment says something a lot about your marriage and what was happening there. What a beautiful moment. I get it why Kevin and Graylin were like listening to that, probably wanting to tell other people about it. Like,
Right.
what a moment. Woo. So I was wrong. Sorry, that wasn't pre-birth. Lily had been born already, but not been named, if I remember correctly.
That was did I say 7 a.m.?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe PM. I
Okay.
can't remember.
Well, I think, yeah, okay. That sounded like I was at the hotel
Mm-hmm.
because Lily was born at like 8. So Lily
Okay.
wasn't born yet.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So that was a
I had
message that
forgotten
Erin
that.
has on her phone. I wonder if she still has it on her phone.
No,
Okay.
definitely not. But I'm so glad we recorded that.
Yeah.
That's nuts, bro.
Pretty cool, huh?
Wow.
Um,
And just to think that Lily's now about to be a tween. She's has her birthday in 2.5 weeks.
she'll be 12, is that right?
Yep, she's gonna be 12, and she's
Yep.
Learning the clarinet and just
Going to
crazy.
youth group.
Yeah, we had our first 6th grade youth group. She's a winsome kid that's bringing her friends. She wants to start a revival in her middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that just reminds me one more time is like we always talked about, me and you, like, you know, making the podcast. Well, first of all, we always wanted to make it politically neutral.
Yeah.
We had this like behind the scenes thing of like where we always have our faith. It's super important to us, but we're
Yep.
not super overt about it on the podcast.
Yep.
And yet we totally are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, I didn't even realize it. It comes out.
Yeah.
You know what I
It
mean?
does.
Just comes out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, I forgot about that.
So here's something we did talk about that a lot on the 10th anniversary. I just felt like it bore repeating. Here's something that we didn't talk about: the fact that I had to kind of run the podcast for 3 weeks while you were gone, because your grandma also died,
Oh my god!
and so you were gone right after that also, and
Yep.
so it was episode 1, 2, 3, 4 of the first season when all this was happening. It just destroyed our plans for what we thought it was going to be. And so I
Dang.
decided I was going to keep going. And so this is from Harold. He says, I have some deep cuts. The episodes when Stephen was forced to record solo while Anthony was in Cuba and at his grandma's funeral. For one episode, he spliced Anthony clips from the previous episodes in out of context.
Yeah.
And next one, he called Anthony on the phone and then interviewed his kids and Jessica about running, and they gave Gomers tips. I was
Yeah.
laughing and crying in both. So
Mm.
Albert to the rescue,
Uh-huh.
sent a clip from the episode where I spliced you in. Dude, I had completely forgotten about this.
Me too. And this is the one that Albert was saying also, just like Harold, he was crying, laughing, had to get off the treadmill.
Okay. All right, let's take a listen.
Yeah.
in just a second. But before I get to those things, I just feel like, as is our tradition here on the podcast, I need to do a little bit of pop culture discussion. And I didn't want to do that all by myself. So what I've done is, through the magic of audio editing, I have edited some of Anthony's responses from past podcasts so it doesn't feel like I'm talking about this alone. So here we go. Ready for the jingle?
Sure.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Terra Nova Chat.
Terra Nova.
So,
Terra Nova, dude, what the frick?
Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
So Terra Nova premiered last week,
Right.
and I'm not going to ask you how you felt about it. You've got things going on right now, busy life, but I wanted to give you a couple thoughts that I had. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right. So I had high hopes. Right, the bar was set super high. Okay, that's
You scrubbed a little forward.
and so, anyways, Terra Nova, not really that into it. I don't know, Anthony, what's your opinion of it, or what you thought?
How does it get rid of waste?
Okay, that's I mean, the dinosaurs.
Yep.
You mean I guess just in the woods. That wouldn't have been my question. I don't know. The humans probably take care of it within the camp and get rid of it somehow, and there's probably dinosaur feces everywhere. So that's my answer to that question. Does that satisfy you, Anthony? I mean, that's your thoughts on Terra Nova?
Sure.
Okay. Any other things you want to talk about?
Yeah. Modern Family.
Yeah, I loved the Modern Family premiere also. Thanks for joining us, Anthony, even though I know your life is a little bit crazy now.
You've got it.
Speaking of which, maybe we should go into the runner's corner and talk a little bit more about what is happening with you at this stage of your life. Cool?
Credit card.
I think I just started splicing in random things you always said. Well, there we go. Can I play you a little bit of my kids
Yeah.
in this episode that Harold was mentioning?
So I have a question about that, okay? Now, was it hot or cold?
Hot.
So on this show that Anthony and I have, sometimes we give tips to other runners, like how to run faster or whatever.
This was just context. They were telling me about a race they had done at school,
Okay.
and it was hot.
So I wonder if you guys have any tips for.
What
if-
does tip mean?
A tip means like a hint or like
A little
advice,
Yeah,
right? Okay. So
What
do you?
does advice mean?
Advice means what did you do?
Like it's a little helper. A helper.
A little helper. Perfect. A little helper. Okay. So I want to know, what do you do when you're running and it gets super hot and you have to keep running? Yes, Jack? Is this what you do at school? You just raise your hand, but you have nothing to say?
That's what Noah does.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it is unbearably cute, bro. And I had also
Dude, that rules.
completely forgotten about it. So thank you to Harold for reminding me of those things. Pretty fun.
Wow. I
Um,
gotta listen to that.
yeah. Okay. So let's move forward in time because several people wrote about guests that we've had on the podcast, which is a
Yeah.
pretty new development.
Yep.
Mostly because we had no idea how to do it before.
Yeah, it was probably more technical.
As usual.
Well,
Sometimes we
also-
do or don't do things because of the technical side of it.
Yeah, our schedules too.
Definitely.
You know.
Oh yeah, it's a lot harder. So Sarah mentioned Jeff Galloway,
Yep.
our biggest get, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest running celebs there
Yep.
is.
Yeah, definitely. She said, I followed him maybe longer than you guys, but it was so much fun to hear. We heard that a lot, that it was a fun like meeting
Yeah.
of the two worlds,
Uh-huh.
right?
Well, yeah, that was so great. And
It was
remember
really awesome.
there was a well, he was willing to be the code or the block deflector.
Yep.
Deflected.
And he started going, deflected.
Oh, I love that. And
And
then
then
there was that huge storm in Atlanta, and my
that's
power
what I was
just
just
went
gonna
out.
say. Our biggest get, and that
Yeah.
3/4 of the way in, you're just gone from the feed. Classic Gomer
black.
stuff.
In the
Yep.
video, I'm completely black, and then it just blacks out.
Can
'Cause
you
it was
read
so dark.
Jonathan's comment?
Yeah. Okay. He says the best episode you guys ever did was when Jessica was on talking about the unique challenges of being a female runner. It might even be the most impactful episode of any podcast I've ever listened to for me personally. It changed my life. Thank you, Jessica.
I really liked when I think especially on the blocks episodes,
Yeah.
we really tried to get different voices. I think about Jason coming in talking about drinking, right?
Mhm.
That was we heard a lot of comments about that. That's a fan favorite episode. Yeah. I love that we have that episode with Jessica out there,
Me
and I've
too.
recommended it to a lot of people.
Yes.
Good
Actually,
stuff.
James Keith wrote in the same thing.
Okay.
He said he sent in it. I think that was on Patreon. That was one of his most impactful episodes as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting that we heard that from guys too. You know what I mean? We've heard that from women
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's cool that we heard it from guys too, because, you know, I think one takeaway, if I may, is that guys think they can get away with that little cheeky glance, you know, and think that it doesn't cost anybody anything.
Yep.
And Jessica really shared that you feel it, and it does cost somebody something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that it's not just a victimless thing.
Yeah.
You know, it makes
100%.
it makes them feel objectified, and
yeah,
that really touched me too.
Yeah, calling those things out. I think that it became an episode about more than just running, which is a theme.
For sure.
I think, especially since Runner's Block started, that as we've dug deeper into these things, it becomes a lot more than just a running podcast.
We also debunked the old 90s thing about, like, well, don't lust after a woman because that's somebody's sister.
Right. Yeah. Why does somebody have to be a sister or a daughter for you to care about them?
Right. Somebody's wife. Like, you shouldn't, you know, and it was like, no, they're a person made in the image of God.
Shouldn't that be enough?
That should just be enough. Yeah. That was a big thing in the 90s. And I understand the heart and sentiment behind it.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Like, there's a lot of good stuff in there. But no, don't do that.
Yep. Yeah. Super helpful, and something that I hadn't thought of before. I was like,
yep.
Okay, great. Jessica, by the way, says thank you back for hearing her out. I asked her about it last night. And also she says thank you for helping us buy our house. For the Patreon, it really helped us afford to get this house. And then when we put our GoFundMe up, when our house basically exploded after we bought it.
Yeah.
You know who you are, listeners. Some of you came through huge for us on that GoFundMe. And I'm not exaggerating. There were some donations that we had us running around our house with joy. And so thank you, listeners. I don't know what we would do. We would have done actually without the podcast. So she says thank you right back.
Awesome.
We've also in this category, I kind of included guests or listeners that we've met in person. As favorite moments of ours. I know you met Margaret. I never did.
Yeah. So Margaret Den Heyer, her husband is Dutch. I believe that's where that name comes from.
Okay.
And so this is not just a way to plug me playing with the Cleveland Orchestra. I promise. But we were talking about favorite moments. and
Yeah.
I'm on stage, I'm doing my thing, and I get one of the personnel comes and says, "Hey, there's somebody at the front of the stage that wants to meet you," and I'm like, "What? I'm from
Mhm.
Florida. I'm just subbing up here,
Right.
and why is there somebody?" So it was Margaret,
Mhm.
and she had been a long time listener, and got to meet her in person. My mom was actually at that concert. My dad was at that concert.
Yeah.
Uh, and so she had gotten to share with my mom how much the Gomer podcast meant to her.
Right.
Like as she was going through cancer treatments
Yep.
and dark days.
Mhm.
She said she had us on the iPhone.
Mhm.
I think even on the iPad back then, just listening to our voices
Yeah.
as
Incredible.
light as and so I actually texted her. I texted her yesterday.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, because I was like, Margaret, we're doing this thing and we're going through our memories,
Yeah.
and that moment when my mom was there and my dad was there and we got to meet you and you shared that the podcast meant so much,
Mhm.
was one of the most touching moments of the whole podcast 15 years for me.
Yeah.
And she wrote me back actually that she's been having a really really hard summer.
Mm.
That she oh my gosh, we texted a lot last night.
I'm telling you, some listeners are friends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically she lost her dad and her mom
Mm.
in the last year, and then
Mhm.
both their dogs.
Ugh.
And so she'd just been through a lot of just darkness, and
Mhm.
even just our conversation yesterday, I think, brought hope, and we were talking about scripture, and
Mm.
of course I shared a Tim Keller sermon. She's like, I already listened to that. Actually, she hadn't listened to that one, but she's like, that sounds like just up. And she
Uh-huh.
sent pictures of that, and it just, I don't know, the fact that somehow this silly fun thing that we do.
Yeah.
So I mean, Tim
Mhm.
McDermott said this exact same thing,
Also a
that
previous
his
guest talking about grief, and
yeah
yeah, that you've been able to meet in person. I've met his daughter now. His daughter's in my ministry. It's nuts.
yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But I mean, as Tim was losing his wife over the
Mhm.
course of a few years,
Yeah.
and then ultimately did, he just said that our podcast was brought joy
Mhm.
and hope.
Mhm.
Uh, Actually, Scott Schneider said the same thing.
Yep.
Scott Eat the Frog Schneider, his wife and father were both diagnosed with cancer, and he said that you were a voice of levity in a dark time for me.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have us reading those quotes in part 2, but it's worth
Okay.
repeating in both times. Like, some of my favorite moments from the podcast personally have been from hearing from listeners how we've actually had, like you just said, this fun weird thing that we do has had an impact on their lives. It's really nuts,
Yeah.
and
That's
in a
cool.
good way. Um, and I know what you mean. After reading these, you get a new fire under you for the podcast. Like, if we have that effect on people, then we should keep doing it.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Okay, let me take a hard left turn and talk about this last theme, which is Gomers being Gomers.
Mm-hmm.
Josh wrote about his favorite moment being triathlon season and how clueless we were.
Mm.
He said he was on a long run while he was on a trip in Canada and couldn't stop laughing when we were trying to figure out what the distances were. Albert comes through again with a clip.
Yes.
This one is not about distances, but I really think you get an idea of we had no friggin' idea.
Yeah.
And those are the most, I think, precious parts of the podcast. Here it is. Oh, for some reason, these are taking a little while. That's okay. All right. Come on. Shoot, this one's not working. Dang. Okay, let me open it again. Edit point. This is too good not to hear. Shoot.
and this
Mhm.
race is in Tampa Bay.
Right.
Like
In the ocean.
well,
I
it's
mean,
the
it's
Gulf.
salt water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do we do with that?
Don't know. That's the first time I've thought about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, that is the first time I've thought this is going to be in salt water. Maybe that's good, right? You float more. I don't know.
Yeah, you are more buoyant for sure. I mean, but there's like
the Dead Sea.
waves, wind, fire,
Ay,
water,
ay, ay.
and there's
Ay,
like
ay, ay.
there's like sharks and stingrays and manatees, dolphins. There's dolphins all up in that.
Manatees.
There's manatees, dude, for real.
Oh my gosh. I never even thought about the manatees.
Right.
It became, I remember, a topic of discussion moving forward was the manatees. It really is so fun to listen to those
Yeah,
and how
Yup.
clueless we were. Oh my gosh.
I love it.
I also thought this from Laura was really interesting, where she was saying, I appreciate your candor, and sometimes I really identify with Anthony, and sometimes I really identify with Steven.
Mm.
You guys are so different, but complement each other well.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
why. I've just really loved hearing that.
Yeah, that was another great email.
Mhm.
I think that's something that over the course of time too has just been brought to the surface and fleshed out. When we
Yep.
started, it was like we're totally alike. We're
Yeah.
two Gomers, right?
Yep.
But all of our strengths and weaknesses and tons of our warts and
Mm-hmm.
weirdnesses have come out on the podcast.
Yep.
I mean, from all the different ways we function
Mm-hmm.
to different ways we've prioritized our health in different seasons of our lives, and
Yep.
and so I love that idea
Mhm.
that sometimes people resonate with you and then
Yep.
sometimes with me. It's super
that
funny.
that it's not just like, I'm assuming for a lot of people it's not except for that one comment on our Apple podcast that says, I like Gomer 1. Gomer 2,
Yeah.
meh.
Yeah.
And we have an argument about which one she's actually talking about, this commenter.
Yeah.
But I really love Laura saying, it's not like I just get something from one of you,
Mhm.
but my favorite moments are from both. I really like that.
Yep.
That
That
can I
kind
just
of
play?
helps battle with the. I think two people could compare a lot,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and I think even in the earlier seasons we did that some.
Yep.
But a win for you is a win for me. A win for me is a win for you.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, was there? I think you had something in here from Sue, maybe, that we inspire others to find a great friend.
Oh yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if I
Sue,
have
yeah,
that
she talked
email
about
on right by me, but
Yeah, well, she talked about that. Oh man, about friendship and about how
Mhm.
that really, really touched her.
Yes.
That we're such good friends.
Yep.
Let me look for that real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. She said, "I never." Oh no, she was the one that said, "I never thought I would be so excited about two guys
Oh,
at
right.
Blockbuster."
That's right. Yeah.
But she also talked about friendship.
Okay.
Jake, my buddy Jake, also said that our podcast is a reminder that the world needs friendship.
That's
And
awesome.
that it's inspired him to pursue authentic relationships, and that is what the true beauty
Mhm.
of the Gomers is.
And we've heard a lot of people, in no uncertain terms, sometimes literally say,
Yep.
we have never heard this before. Adult men who love one another. So it might exist, but we've never heard it before. And so I don't know. I'm pretty proud of that, bro, that we're able to
cool.
do that.
Yep.
Hey, we're coming to a close, but I wanted to play Allison's voicemail here.
Yeah.
Just kind of as we wrap up.
Hey, Anthony and Stephen. It's Allison Steedle. Congrats on 15 years of podcasting and many, many more years on just being Gomers. I've been listening to you guys since 2010, so a lot of life has happened since then, but I'm so thankful to have been able to listen to you guys along the way. I was also new to running when I started listening, but you've always been more than a running podcast to me. Some things that will forever be stuck in my brain because of you are peeps are yucky, wow, and what you doing over there running in the corner, mate? Yeah, that's a deep cut. just so you know, your audience really appreciates all the hard work you put in and the hard work of being so honest and vulnerable. So thank you. Looking forward to the next 15 years. Love you guys. Bye.
So am I
man.
mistaken? Did she make the noise there? Wow, wow. Is
I
that what
think
you're talking about,
so.
Allison? I think that's what she
Wow.
did. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. That would be every time you hurt yourself, for example, right before the triathlon, riding down a parking garage on your brand new Trek bike. Speaking of Trek 820 Antelopes.
That's right. Yeah. And
That was on the preview results.
You were
episode,
ahead of
but-
me and heard wow.
Wow. And you broke your hand or your pinky or whatever.
Yep, I broke my finger.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. 15 years of that kind of stuff, folks.
Uh-huh. Wow.
I said thank you from Jessica. I think you had asked Aaron also about any sentiment she might
actually,
have.
Aaron, I said, "Do you have anything you want to share?" She texted me this. We're always in constant communication, seeing as she is my hero and my strong woman.
You're a strong woman, as we all know. Yep.
Oh la la!
Hey,
Dude.
whoa, baby.
Shoot. Oh man, I was crying before. Now I'm like excited.
The beauty of that, dude, is you never knew that was going to be played on a podcast. It's just something you said to her. Dude, wow.
That's raw.
That's for sure. All right.
Okay, so she said, this is from Aaron. She said the consistency of the Gomers has helped to keep health and fitness in the conversation of our family, which is not part of my family of origin. I don't think I would be pursuing running at all. When I finished PE junior year, I was done with exercise. I'm so thankful you started and continued.
I remember you tell what I don't know if she said that to me or if you told me about that on her behalf. That she just decided.
Yep.
The minute I don't have to do this anymore, I never will do this again.
Done. Yeah, I mean, she's been the one that's been inspiring me, man.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, forget not forget. Okay. 2 natural births, that's tops. That's something. First of all, obviously we could never do. Second of all, whoa. But she's out there every freaking morning now for a year. I mean, started this time last year, and she's doing running races and so she's
amazing.
Yeah. Incredible.
Can I say our strong woman? Probably not. Your strong woman.
She's Jessica's year. But she's she's Gomer 1.5 and Jessica's 2. I mean, although those numbers, that doesn't really make sense.
We just had to cram them in there is the problem. Like 3 and 4 had already been claimed.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, that was a fun app.
Super fun. Exhausted, and we still got another one.
Which probably is going to be more emotional.
Shoot.
If people have other clips they want to send us or anything to say to us here in the 15th anniversary, contact us. The best way is to go to Instagram. You can find our link tree in our bio there and links to all things Gomers. You could call us on the Gomer phone. That number is
608-622-7669. That's 608 NBA Pony.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe and follow. We are almost at 500 reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you want to give us a present for our 15th anniversary, just go right now and give us a star rating and or a review. That would be awesome. Thank you to Davis for our music, Jason and Eric for our graphics, Adam, our webmaster, Annie, our social media guru, and of course, the Gomertrons. They subscribe to our second podcast, The Bonus Disc, on Patreon, up to 4 episodes, bonus episodes per month based on how much you give or donate, I should say. All that is at patreon.com/2gomers. We welcome your support and we thank you.
Amazing, dude. Well, should we do part 2?
Let's do part 2. Great ep.
Super fun, man. And remember, everybody, if we can look back at the last 15 years and do some serious retrospective thinking and learn how we've grown and how we, all that, you can too.
And happy running.
All right.
All right,
Stop that. 1, 2, 3, stop.
Okay, I'm going to stop our video so that this one gets saved separately. Bye, everybody.
Bye.